To create a game, interactive story, animation, or artwork in Scratch, you must add code to tell a sprite exactly what to do. A sprite is a computer picture that will follow your commands, and the Scratch editor automatically starts with a cat sprite for all projects. This area here is called the Sprites pane. You can add new sprites, delete a sprite, and see all of the different sprites that you've added in your project in this area. Any sprites added will appear on the stage, located here. The stage is the area where you will see your code come to life. You can think of this area just like a Broadway stage where actors perform on. This is where the sprites will follow the coded commands that you have put together in the code area, just like actors follow the scripts that's created for them. The stage is also the background of your project, and you can personalize it by adding different backdrops from the Backdrops library located here. You'll tell the sprites exactly what to do by giving them commands that are put together into a program. A command is an instruction to do a particular task, and those are shown in the form of code blocks that can be found in the Blocks palette located here in the Code tab. You can think of this area as your toolbox. All of the blocks are color-coded and can be found in the different categories on the very left side of the Blocks palette. As you can see, all of the motion blocks are dark blue and can be accessed by clicking on the blue motion category here. If I click on the Events category, I will have the option to choose from all of the events blocks that are the same color. A program is a group of commands listed together in a specific order. Think of a program like the steps you must follow in a cookbook to bake a cake. You'll build your program by choosing code blocks from the toolbox or the Blocks palette here and dragging them onto the code area here. You can think of this area as your sprite's empty brain, where you'll drag instructions for it to follow so that it can run them on the stage. The blocks can be clipped together in the code area to make a script. And just like the steps to baking a cake, or the script for an actor to follow in a play, the order of the blocks is very important. To start your program, click the green flag located here. And to stop your program, click the red stop sign here. You can enlarge your stage by clicking this button here. And you can minimize your stage again by clicking the same button. Finally, when you're done creating your program, click File here, and then Save to your computer.
Scratch Basics series. This episode will take you through the steps of deleting a sprite, adding a sprite, and adding a backdrop. Let's begin. We are first going to start with how to delete a sprite. In your Sprites pane in the bottom right corner, click on the garbage can located in the top right corner of the sprite that you wish to delete. This will also delete any code that has been created under that sprite. Every new project on Scratch will begin with the cat sprite. By clicking on the garbage can, this will delete the cat sprite. Next, we're going to go over how to add a sprite. First, hover over the Choose a Sprite icon in the bottom right corner of the Sprites pane. Select the magnifying glass icon, which will take you to the Scratch Sprite library. You can scroll through all of the sprites available, or you can search for a sprite using the search bar. And lastly, you can select a category from the top bar to find a sprite. Select the sprite that you would like to use and code. The sprite that you select will now appear on your stage and in your Sprites pane. You can also create your own sprite. To do this, you must hover over the Choose a Sprite icon in the Sprites pane, select the Paintbrush icon, which will take you directly to an area which you can begin to create your own sprite using the tools available. Lastly, we want to learn how to add a backdrop. To do this, hover over the Choose a Backdrop icon in the bottom right corner of your screen. Select the magnifying glass icon, which will take you to the Scratch Backdrop library. You can scroll through all the backdrops available, search for a backdrop using the search bar, or select a category from the top menu to find a backdrop. Once you select the backdrop that you would like to use, it will appear directly on your stage. You can also create your own backdrop. To do this, you must hover over the Choose a Backdrop icon in the bottom right corner of your screen. Select the paintbrush icon, which will take you to an area that will allow you to create your own backdrop using the tools available. Once you create your backdrop, you'll see that this will appear directly on your stage.
This episode will take you through the steps to make your sprite say something using a speech bubble. First, you'll want to start your project by adding a sprite and a backdrop. For help on this step, watch episode 2 in our Scratch Basics series. Once you've added your sprite, make sure you've clicked on it in the Sprites pane. Now it's ready to receive code. We're going to start by adding an events block. These blocks will tell our code when to run. Click on Events in the Blocks palette, and then drag a When Green Flag Clicked block onto your code area. Now, when we click the green flag here, whatever code we add underneath will run. Next, go to the Looks category. These blocks change the appearance of your sprite. Grab a Say Hello for 2 seconds block and snap it right underneath the When Green Flag Clicked in your code area. This block has 2 inputs. The first input is for what will be displayed in the speech bubble, and right now the default is hello. The second input here is for the number of seconds that the speech bubble will show on the stage, and right now it's for 2 seconds. Now when I click the green flag here, you'll see that my bear says hello for 2 seconds. If you want to change what your sprite says, just change the inputs. I'm going to change hello to grrr. And I want my bear to say that for 3 seconds. Now I want my bear to say more than just grrr. So I'm going to add another say hello for 2 seconds block right underneath. And I'll have him say, have you seen my honey? And since this is a little bit longer, I'm going to have him say it for 3 seconds. Let's test our code by clicking the green flag and watch our script run. I can't wait to see what you make your sprite say.
Let's begin. Choose a sprite that you wish to add a sound to. If you are unfamiliar with how to choose a sprite, see Scratch Basics Episode 2, Deleting a Sprite, Adding a Sprite, and Adding a Backdrop for more information. Some sprites will come with their own sound, which can be found by selecting the sprite you wish to add a sound to and clicking on the Sounds menu above the block palette. Sounds associated with your sprite will appear in the menu to the left side of your screen. To select a different sound, go to Choose a Sound in the bottom left corner of the Sounds menu. Select the magnifying glass icon. This will take you to the Scratch Sound Library. You can scroll through all of the sounds, search for a sound using the search bar, or select a category from the top of the menu to find a sound. You can test any sound by hovering over the play button in the top right corner of the sound. Add the sound that you would like to code by left-clicking on it. The sound that you selected will appear in the left-hand menu under the Sounds tab located above the Blocks palette. You can also create your own sound if the device you are using has a microphone for voice recording. To do this, you must go to Choose a Sound in the bottom left corner of the Sounds menu. Select the microphone icon to record your own sound. The Record Sound box will appear on your screen. When you are ready to begin recording your sound, select the orange Record button. The recording will begin as soon as you click the orange Record button. Clear for takeoff. When you're finished, select the Stop button. Test your recording by selecting the blue Play button. You can also trim your recording at the beginning and the end by dragging the orange dots to your desired location. You can also select the blue Re-Record button if you would like to start your recording again. Select the blue Save button when you have your desired recording. Your voice recording will appear in the left-hand menu at the bottom under the Sounds. To rename your voice recording, select on the recording in the left menu, click inside the white sound bubble and rename it by deleting the current name and typing the name you would like. This will also change the name of your recording in the left-hand menu. To code a sound on your sprite, select the code in the top tabs. Go to the Events tab and click and drag a When Green Flag Clicked block from the Events panel onto your code area. Next, go into the Sound tab in your block palette and click and drag a Play Sound Space Ripple Until Done block onto your code area. Click on the drop-down menu in the Play Sound Space Ripple Until Done block and select the sound that you wish to use in your code. If you would like to add multiple sounds to your code, go to the Control tab in the Blocks palette and click and drag a Wait 1 second block onto your code area. You can change the time in the white bubble to make it a shorter or longer time between sounds by clicking inside the white bubble and typing your desired seconds. Next, you're going to go back to your Sound tab and click and drag a second Play Sound Space Ripple Until Done onto your code area. Click on the drop-down menu to select a different sound that will play after the first sound. Test out your code. Clear for takeoff. You'll see that once you select the green flag, your first sound will play and then it will wait 1 second and then your second sound will play.
This episode will take you through the steps of making your sprite fly around the stage. First, you'll want to start your project by adding a sprite and a backdrop. For help on this step, watch episode 2 in our Scratch Basics series. Once you've added your sprite, make sure you've clicked on it in the Sprites pane here. Now it's ready to receive code. We're going to start by adding an Events block, which will tell our code when to run. Click on Events in the block palette, and then drag a When Space Key Pressed block. This is a keyboard input block, which means that when we press the space key on the keyboard, whatever code we add underneath will run. If you click the drop-down menu here, you'll access all of the different keyboard input options you can choose from. You can choose arrow keys to start your code. You can choose letters on your keyboard to start your code, or you can choose numbers to start your code. I'm going to stick with the space key. Next, go to the motion category here. These blocks control the movement of your sprite. Grab a Glide 1 second to random position block and snap it right underneath your event block in the code area. This motion block will have your sprite glide at a steady pace to a random position on the stage for 1 second. Let's test this out. When I click the space key on my keyboard, my sprite glides to a random position for 1 second. If I hold my finger down on the space key, my parrot sprite continuously moves to random positions for 1 second. And he won't stop until I take my finger off the keyboard. The first white bubble in this motion block is a number input. This is where you can change the number of seconds that you want your sprite to glide for. If you make this number larger, like 8 seconds, for example, our sprite will move much more slowly. This is because it's taking 8 seconds to glide to that random position. Now if I change this number to a smaller number, like 0.2 for example, and press the space key, you'll see that the sprite moves much more quickly because it's gliding for less seconds.
This episode will take you through the steps of making your sprite glide from one specific location on your stage to another. Let's begin. To start, you must choose a backdrop for your project and a sprite that you want to code to glide from one point to another on the stage. If you need help with how to choose a sprite, see our Scratch Basics Episode 2, Deleting a Sprite, Adding a Sprite, and Adding a Backdrop for more information. Start by clicking and dragging your sprite on your stage to the location in which you want your sprite to begin each time that you run your code. This will change the XY coordinate of your sprite in the Sprites pane. Next, we're going to go over to the Events tab and click and drag a When This Sprite Clicked block from the Events category in the block palette to the code area. This block will run your code when you click on your sprite on your stage. Next, we're going to click and drag a Go to XY coordinate from the Motion category in the block palette onto your code area. This block will tell your sprite where to begin on the stage when you run your code. You will notice that the XY coordinates inside the box of the block you just placed onto your code area match the XY coordinates of your sprite in the Sprites pane. Next, we're going to click and drag a Wait 1 seconds block from the Control category in the block palette to the code area and clip it to the Go to XY coordinate block. This wait block will tell your sprite to wait a specific amount of seconds before gliding to its next given XY coordinate. You can change the number of seconds inside the white bubble on the block. Now we want to click and drag your sprite on the stage to the next location that you want your sprite to move to. As you can see, I'm going to click and drag my sprite to the bottom of the steps here from the chicken coop. This will update the XY coordinates of your sprite in the Sprites pane again. Next, we need to click and drag a Glide 1 seconds to XY coordinate block from the Motion category in the block palette onto the code area. This block will have the sprite's newly updated coordinates. This block will tell your sprite to glide for 1 second to the set XY coordinates inside the block. Test your code by clicking on your sprite on the stage.
This episode will take you through the steps of making your sprite move left and right. First, you'll want to start your project by adding a sprite and a backdrop. For help with this step, watch episode 2 in our Scratch Basics series. Once you've added your sprite, make sure you clicked on it here in the Sprites pane. Now it's ready to receive code. Let's begin by setting the starting position of our sprite. But first, I want you to watch the values of the X and Y coordinates here in the Sprites pane as I move the car around the stage. When I move the car to the right, the value of X gets bigger each time. As I move the car to the left, the value of X gets smaller and smaller each time, and eventually goes into negative numbers. As I move the car upwards, the value of the y coordinate gets bigger and bigger each time. And as I move the car down, the value of y gets smaller, and then it eventually goes into negative numbers. These numbers are showing you the location of your sprite on the x and y axis of a grid that's behind the stage. The x-coordinate values shows the horizontal location of your sprite on the grid, which is this orange line here. The y-coordinate value shows the vertical location of the sprite on the grid, and that's this blue line here. Now move your sprite to the location on the stage that you want it to start at. I want my car to start here. And you can see that this location on the grid is x negative 156 and y negative 77. Now let's add some code. Go to the yellow events category here and grab a when green flag clicked. Drag this into your code area. Next, go to the blue motion category here and grab a go to XY block. Snap this right underneath the when green flag clicked in your code area. Now you see that this block has the same coordinate values as the values in the sprites pane. X is negative 156 and y is negative 77. This means that we don't have to change these numbers. Now watch what happens when I move the car anywhere else on the stage and then press the green flag. My car goes back to the location that I've set in this XY block. Now we're ready to add the code that will move our car left and right. Go to the events category again, and now grab a when space key pressed block and drag it into your code area. Click the drop-down menu and choose the right arrow. Now we've started a new event, so whatever code we add under here will only run when we press the right arrow. It won't run when we press the green flag because that's a different event. Go back to the blue motion category here and grab a change X by block, which is right down at the bottom. Snap this right underneath the when right arrow key pressed block in your code area. This block is telling us that it will change the value of X by 10 every time we press the right arrow on our keyboard. Now where do you think the sprite will move? To the right or to the left if we are increasing the number by 10? Or making the value of X bigger each time we press the arrow key? Let's see. Every time I press the right arrow, my car sprite moves to the right. And you can see that the value of X in the sprites pane here will increase every time my car moves to the right. And if I want to bring my car back to that starting location, I just simply press the green flag. Now let's code our car sprite to move to the left. Go back to the yellow events category and grab another when key space pressed. Click the drop-down menu and change it to the left arrow. Now we're going to go back to the blue motion category and grab another change X by block and snap it underneath the when left arrow key pressed. Now we want to change the number 10 to a negative 10. This means that the value of X will get smaller by 10 every time we press the left arrow. Let's try this out. If I press the left arrow, my car is moving to the left. and the value of the x-coordinate is getting smaller by 10 each time. When I press the right arrow, x increases, and when I press the left arrow, the value of x decreases. So now I can move my sprite left and right with the arrow keys.
The steps of making your sprite move up and down using the arrow keys on your keyboard. Let's begin. To start, choose a backdrop for your project and a sprite that you want to code to make it move up and down on the stage. If you need help with how to choose a sprite or a backdrop, see Scratch Basics Episode 2, Deleting a Sprite, Adding a Sprite, and Adding a Backdrop for more information. For this episode, let's start by setting the position of your sprite. Click and drag your sprite where you want it to go on your stage. So for this part, I'm going to put my sprite on top of the table. You will notice once you click and drag your sprite that your X and Y coordinates in the sprite's pane will update. Next, click and drag a When Green Flag Clicked block from the Events category in the block palette onto your code area. Next, click and drag a Go to XY coordinates block from the Motion category in the block palette on the code area. This block will tell your sprite where to begin on the stage when you run your code. You will notice that the X coordinate and Y coordinate inside the block match the X coordinate and Y coordinate of your sprite in the sprite's pane. Next, we want to code our sprite to move up and down. To do this, we need to click and drag a When Space Key Pressed block from the Events category in the block palette onto the code area. Click on the drop-down menu in the When Space Key Pressed block and select the up arrow. This will tell your sprite that when you press the up arrow, it will follow the code underneath it. Next, click and drag a Change Y by 10 block from the Motion category in the block palette. Attach this block to the When Up Arrow Key Pressed block. The Change Y by 10 block tells your sprite to move up the Y axis because the number is getting bigger. Therefore, when you press the up arrow key, your sprite should move 10 places upward on the Y axis to a new Y coordinate. Next, we need to click and drag a second When Space Key Pressed block from the Events category onto your code area. Click on the drop-down menu in the When Space Key Pressed block and select Down Arrow. This will tell your sprite that when you press the down arrow, it will follow the code underneath it. Next, we want to click and drag a Change Y by 10 block onto the code area and attach it to the When Down Arrow Key Pressed block. Click on the white bubble inside the Change Y by 10 block that is attached to the When Down Arrow Key Pressed block. We're going to change this number to -10, and this will tell your sprite to move down the y-axis because the number is getting smaller. Therefore, when you press the down arrow key, your sprite should move 10 places downward on the y-axis to a new y coordinate. Test out your code by pressing the green flag button above the stage. Use your up and down arrow keys to move your sprite up and down along the y-axis.
This episode will take you through the steps of animating your sprite by changing its costumes. First, you'll want to choose a backdrop and a sprite that has more than one costume. A costume is another picture of the same sprite that is just slightly different. If we go to the Costumes tab here, you'll see that my dragon sprite has 3 different costumes. Costume A, Costume C, where he's breathing fire, and Costume B, where he looks like he's flying. Now we're going to animate our sprite by switching through these costumes very quickly. To check to see if you have a sprite that has different costumes, you can hover over your sprite in the Sprites library and check to see if it switches through its different costumes. You can see that the balloon has multiple costumes, and the ballerina has multiple costumes, but the apple just has one. So now I'm going to walk you through the steps to make the dragon look like it's animated by switching through its costumes of costume A and then costume C where it breathes fire. We're going to start by going to the events category here and choosing a when this sprite clicked block. Drag it over into your code area. Now we're going to go to the looks category here and grab a switch costume to block. Click the drop down menu and pick the costume that you wish your sprite to change to when you click on it. I'm going to choose Dragon C. Next, we're going to go to the control category here and choose a wait 1 second block. Drag this onto your code area and attach it under the switch costume to. Now this block will have your sprite wait however many seconds you'd like before it switches back to a different costume. I'm going to change this to 0.3 because I'd like it to switch quickly. Go to the looks category and grab another switch costume too. Snap it right underneath the wait block and then click the drop down menu and choose a different costume from the one above. So since I had Dragon C in this top switch costume to block, I'm going to switch this one to Dragon A. Now my code script says when I click on the dragon sprite, we'll first switch to costume Dragon C, wait 0.3 seconds, and then we'll switch to costume Dragon A. Now I'm going to add another wait 1 second block from the control group. And I'm going to change this to 0.3 as well. Now let's click on the sprite and see what it looks like. You can see that every time I click on the sprite, he breathes fire. So you can see that he switches to Dragon C and then he switches back to Dragon A. What sprite will you animate?
Let's begin. Choose a sprite and 2 backdrops for your project that you want to code to switch on the stage. For this episode, I have selected the rocket ship sprite, stars backdrop, and the moon backdrop. Also, I have already coded my rocket ship sprite to switch costumes so that it appears as though it is rotating through space. Once you have selected your 2 backdrops, click on the image of the backdrop below the stage to the right of the code area. This will allow you to code your backdrop. Next, check to make sure that both backdrops you have selected are available to use. To do this, click on the Backdrops tab just above the block palette to the left of your code area. You will see all selected backdrops to the left of your screen in the Backdrops Paint Editor. Next, we want to code our backdrop to change. To do this, go back to the Code tab in the top left corner above the block palette. Click and drag a When Green Flag Clicks block from the Events category onto your code area. This will tell your code to run when the green flag above the stage is clicked or when the block itself is clicked in the code area. Next, we want to click and drag a Switch Backdrop to block from the Looks category in the block palette onto your code area. Attach this block to the When Green Flag Clicked block. Use the drop-down menu to select which backdrop you want your code to begin with every time. For this episode, I'm going to select the Stars backdrop. Next, click and drag a Wait 1 second block from the Control category onto your code area and attach it to the Switch Backdrop to block. You can change the number inside the white bubble by clicking on it and typing the number of seconds you wish your backdrop to run for. For this episode, I have set the seconds to 3 because I want my Stars backdrop to show for 3 seconds before it switches to the next backdrop. Next, we want to click and drag a second Switch Backdrop to block onto our code area and attach it to the Wait 3 seconds block. Again, using the drop-down menu, you're going to select which backdrop you want your code to switch to after the first backdrop and wait block. For this episode, I selected the moon backdrop to be the second backdrop in this code. Next, test your code. Click on the green flag above the stage or click on the green flag block in your code area. Can you use the sprite and 2 backdrops to retell a story or event that has happened? As an example, for this episode, I might tell a story about the first time humans touched down on the moon. I could provide facts by coding the rocket ship to talk, or I could add a second sprite that uses either the record voice option or speech bubble option to tell us all about the first landing.